Alex Sixt. I remember in my old days from Hamburg when I saw your advertisements, and I always had a great laugh when I went by in usually German airports.
Well, thank you, Marco. When I look at my predecessor, how it looked, I will definitely start losing that app, I tell you that. Well, I'm here to present Sixt, maybe in a short while. I probably won't go through the slides. The company was founded by my great-grandfather in 1912. My father took it over in 1968 with about 200 cars, 3 locations. Right now, we have excess revenues of roughly 1.6 billion. We purchased about 280,000 cars, net asset value about 3.5 billion, equity base roughly 800 million. In terms of strategy, we have basically 3 main pillars of strategy. On the one hand, European expansion. We are a market leader in Germany with a market share of roughly 40%. In Europe, we overtook Hertz last year. This year, we will take Avis. So Europe car is just a little fraction ahead of us, but we are, in fact, the most profitable car rental company on this planet, as far to my knowledge. The second dimension of strategy is international expansion in the United States. The US market is by far the largest car rental market in the world, about 25 billion euros in revenue. Miami Airport itself has about 38,000 cars, which is about 2/3 of our fleet in Germany. In every of those markets, we achieved a market share of roughly 6 to 8%, which sounds trivial right now, but if we were to conquer the most lucrative 100 airports, we would basically double our revenues, and this is our midterm future goal, about 4 years. And the third pillar, strategic alternative investments. And I'd like to quote, I just read on my way over here an interesting Morgan Stanley research report, and he quoted Edison when he introduced his light bulb in Mellon Park. He said, we're going to make electricity so cheap that only the rich people can afford to burn candles. And transferred it to our industry is we're going to make mobility so efficient and so cheap that only the rich people can afford to buy cars. Why is that? The car is probably one of the most underutilized assets in the world. It's driven for, on average, about an hour a day, 23 hours a day it's parked on the side of the road. There are about 1 billion vehicles in the world, representing a total value of roughly $20 trillion. That's about the GDP size of the United States. And all this product of such massive labor, productivity, and material is achieving a utilization of just 4%. Maybe to put it into perspective, 1 billion cars times 365 days times 1 hour a day, that's 365 billion hours driven. That sounds huge, but it kind of masks the 8.4 trillion hours that a car is not used. I think a utilization north of 50% is somehow unrealistic, but we surely can do better than 4%. And how do we react to it? Well, the largest 4 car rental companies in the world grew by about 25 billion in equity value over the last 60 years. The investments in urban mobility generated an equity value of also 25 billion in the last 4 years. That means investors are seeing a tremendous value uptake in this new disruptive industry. And how does a company like mine react to it? Well, on the one hand, we founded DriveNow. DriveNow is a 50-50 joint venture with BMW. It's a car sharing product, and we basically reinvented car sharing. Before, it was kind of this eco thing, and had to pick up your car and drop it off wherever at a designated parking spot. And we wanted to, redefine the product, and the product is IT. So in DriveNow now, you can basically pick up your car and drop it off wherever you like within the city boundaries. When we started DriveNow, the entire car sharing market in Germany had about 150,000 members. Within 1.5 years of its existence, DriveNow generated about 350,000 members, achieving a significant double-digit amount in revenue, a double-digit million amount in revenue, and we are profitable. Now we expanded to our first international city, more or less, it's Vienna, and I'm proud to announce that we're going to launch our product in London as of the 4th of December. The second pillar is our limousine taxi company called MyDriver. In the first 8 months of its existence, we generated about 150,000 rides. And MyDriver is positioned a bit differently than the classical taxi hail limo companies. We focus on 2 different axes. On the one hand, we focus on the B2B client, because we truly believe the B2B segment is probably the most unattacked segment in that domain. I give you a little example. An industrial company out of Munich, their annual car rental spend is roughly 20 million euros. The annual taxi spend is about 100 million euros. My former employer, Ronald Berger, the annual car rental spend is 2 million. The taxi spend is 4 million. And the taxi spend is probably the last spend category that is not negotiated by a travel manager. The process of handing in cash, putting a slip in, it's a nightmare. So we decided that that industry has to be reshaped, and we basically got about 2/3 of the German consulting companies and auditors already as a client of DriveNow. The second big issue I see in the current market is guaranteeing supply. Unlike in the United States, there's massive amount of supply when it comes to drivers. In Germany, unfortunately, the taxi market is so strong that guaranteeing supply is currently the biggest issue. And I think that's where our strengths come in as a car rental company. We are able, due to the fact that we buy about 250,000 cars this year at kind of favorable purchase conditions than anybody else, we can supply the driver with a fleet and taking out significantly of his cost base, therefore guaranteeing supply. To make a long story short, I think there are 3 major urban mobility trends: car sharing, rent-a-car, and taxi or limo companies. The one who can integrate all those technologies will have a significant advantage towards the others, and the one who solves the riddle of fleet management. I think that's something which is totally undervalued by most of the other companies. I'll give you a little example. If I were to increase my utilization by just 1% in the car rental space, I would increase my EBT by roughly 14 million. If I increase price by €1, I would increase my EBT by 6 million euros. Right now, those apps which are out there are just a pure mechanism to allocate demand and supply. So I think Sixt, offering this whole wide of service range and also has a deep know of the fleet management structure, I think we're pretty well positioned and look forward to the future. I think 20 seconds I made it. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.